Good morning. It's 10 a.m. Eastern and 7 a.m. on the West Coast. I'm Christine Romans. Let's get you current. A big win for progressives in Michigan's Democratic Senate race. NBC News now projecting Abdul El-Sayed the winner. Kristen Welker is here with what it could mean for the fight for the Senate. An armed man arrested at President Trump's golf course days before he was set to be there, raising new questions about recurring security threats. Wall Street is opening this morning after the S&P 500 and the Dow closed at record highs. What's behind the surge? And a new food safety outbreak. This time it's salmonella linked to jalapeños served at Chipotle. What you need to know. And it's good to be with you this very busy Wednesday, August 5th. We got a lot of news to get to this morning. Let's begin this hour with breaking news. NBC News projects former public health official Abdul El-Sayed is the winner of the Democratic Senate primary in Michigan. He defeated Congresswoman Haley Stevens in what became one of the most expensive primaries in history. This is a major win for the left flank of the party. El-Sayed had the backing of top progressives like Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. His win sets up a battle against former Republican Congressman Mike Rogers in November. Michigan is a priority state for Democrats as they look to regain control of the Senate. We have team coverage this morning. NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster is on the ground in Michigan. Meet the Press moderator Kristen Welker is here on the national implications of the race. Shaq, I want to start with you. You were with voters last night. What was the vibe? What are we hearing from El-Sayed and Stevens about this race?
Hi there, Christine. Yeah, I was at the event last night, at the El-Sayed event last night, and I'll tell you there was a little bit less excitement than you would expect, and that's because the margin wasn't as big as they expected. You look at the margin right now, it's just 1 point separating those two candidates, but that doesn't discount what El-Sayed overcame in order to win this race, and really imbalanced spending advantage that benefited Stevens. Stevens also had the endorsement of the sitting governor and the retiring senator, but El-Sayed was still able to come out and win. A candidate who backs Medicare for all, abolishing ICE, really taking that progressive platform as they go into the general election. One comment that he made last night is that now, after that bruising primary, is the time for the party to unify. I want you to listen to a little bit more of what we heard from both candidates before the race was called overnight.
We are not a purple state. We are a state in need of a movement to take our politics back.
Republicans are going to do everything they can to throw all the dirt, all the mud, the kitchen sink at us because they want to keep the U.S. Senate red.
El-Sayed will have a press conference later this hour. And then, of course, this is all about the general election. You may see some of the Mike Rogers signs there. He will be having an event later this morning as well.
And, Shaq, we also just got a call in Michigan's House District 13. Can you bring us up to speed?
Yeah, so this is McKinley. He's progressive, so this is another win for the progressive candidate, someone who also pushes ending U.S. aid to Israel, who at that event last night was getting a lot of supports. He had a lot of supporters among those El-Sayed voters. You see, he was able to defeat the incumbent in this race. So in Michigan, it was another win for the progressive candidate over the more moderate candidate, which will have big general election implications.
Kristen, let's turn back to the El-Sayed victory here. This race isn't just about Michigan. What does it tell us about the Democratic Party's direction as a whole? And it's fascinating to me. Stevens outspent him, 11-1. So that margin of victory looks like it's pretty slim. But wow, that's a big discrepancy in terms of the money spent.
It sure is. I mean, it's extraordinary if you think about all of the money that was spent to defeat him. And we interviewed Senator Bernie Sanders last night. He stressed this point when the race was still close, that it's significant that El-Sayed had a lead and now has been declared the winner. Look, Christine, this was a big night for progressive candidates. There's no doubt about that. Big wins from Michigan, and Shaq just named another one to Kansas. But it wasn't a clean sweep. Some progressive candidates did falter last night. For El-Sayed, it was a much narrower showing, as we're saying. And it's notable that it's taken some news outlets some time to kind of catch up to our initial call that El-Sayed did, in fact, win the race. But look, all of this, Christine, underscores the challenges that El-Sayed may face in a general election. That's what this is ultimately going to be all about. He's going to be facing off against Republican Mike Rogers, who made it clear he actually prefers to run against El-Sayed because he thinks he's got a better shot against him. What you are going to see now, Democrats aiming to unify. There's going to be a big unity rally on Friday. We talked to Senator Bernie Sanders about this. We also talked to Congresswoman Debbie Dingell about this, bringing the moderates as well as independent voters together. And that, I think, is going to be the challenge for El-Sayed in the general election. Can he win over moderates? Can he win over independents? And talking to some of his campaign advisors, they say, look, yes, they want to bring those moderates and independents into the fold. They also want to bring voters who don't typically show up on Election Day out to vote for El-Sayed. Also worth noting, Senator Chris Murphy just posted on social media, excited for Abdul El-Sayed's victory. Voters will have a clear choice in Michigan now, a corporate-owned Trump loyalist or a doctor who will stand up for the little guy. So it gives you a little bit of a preview, Christine, of what we're going to unsee, what we're going to see as we head towards November.
Well, Democrats want to flip 4 seats in November. Yeah. Mike Rogers says he prefers to run against El-Sayed. I mean, I guess for Democrats, there was a choice for them. Now, for the broader electorate, they're choosing between 2 very different candidates.
They really are, Christine. There's no doubt about that. And look, even though Mike Rogers says that he wants to run against El-Sayed, it's clear there's actually a lot of energy on the left. Democrats are going to try to harness that energy to unseat Mike Rogers, or to at least defeat him, I should say. He's not currently seated. And I think that raises the question about whether President Trump could be a liability. The president facing some of his lowest approval ratings to date, the war with Iran now in its 5th month. I don't have to tell you this, Christine. Gas prices above $4 a gallon. All of that runs the risk of potentially being a drag on candidates like Mike Rogers. So he and other GOP candidates are going to have to navigate their relationship to Trump as Republicans try to hold on to the Senate and the House, Christine.
Yeah, no question, affordability is going to be a real driver in the midterms. Kristen Welker, Shaquille Brewster, thank you both for your terrific reporting all night. Thanks. Let's get to the other breaking news we're following this morning. The man arrested near President Trump's Los Angeles area golf club on Sunday is now facing federal charges. 38-year-old Janine John Teal is charged with possession of an unregistered firearm. If convicted, he would face a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years in federal prison. He also faces separate criminal charges at the local level. The arrest came days before President Trump even set foot in California. He was there for a fundraising dinner at the golf club. Joining us now, NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez. Gabe, what tipped off law enforcement about this suspect?
Well, certainly, Christine, some disturbing allegations here. And it was on Sunday, as you mentioned, that authorities at that golf club noticed the suspect apparently scoping out the golf course and taking videos and photographs of security preparations, as you mentioned, just days before President Trump was set to be there. Now, authorities say that they found a pistol in his car, a 16-round magazine actually on him, and more items at his home, including guns, body armor, high-capacity magazines, and notebooks containing, quote, concerning statements inside his home. So certainly a lot of questions about what exactly the motive was here. We understand that authorities had also found that he was under investigation for a robbery back in 2025, and he's been charged in connection with that. We have not heard from the suspect, any comment from him, and online records show that he does not appear to have an attorney at this time, but he is expected to appear in court later today, Christine.
This is hardly the first security threat against the president. How is he reacting to this latest arrest?
Well, certainly. Look, the president has had multiple assassination attempts on him, notably back in 2024 during the campaign. That assassination attempt that came so close back in Butler, Pennsylvania. There was also another suspect who was arrested at a different golf club in 2024 in Florida that was, according to authorities, trying to assassinate the president then. Now, the president did respond to this latest arrest in an interview overnight that just aired. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Well, the only thing I get a little solace from is they say only consequential presidents. And I am definitely consequential.
And that is something the president said repeatedly when it comes to these assassination attempts, that he believes that people are going after him because, in his words, he has been so consequential, Christine.
All right, Gabe Gutierrez. Thanks, Gabe. I want to bring in NBC News law enforcement analyst Evie Pamporas. You know, authorities are still looking for a motive. But what does it tell you, Evie, that he came there with a weapon and that what Gabe was saying, all the things they found on his premises, what does it tell you about what he was doing at that golf club?
So from what I know, actually, on the 31st, he went there and he was actually asking to speak to Secretary Rubio. He wanted to talk to him. Then he leaves. Then he comes back the next day. And then the next day, he's got an earpiece in. He's walking around going through the rooms. He's sitting in the lobby. And that's when staff noticed it and alerted U.S. Secret Service. So what do we know about him? This is what we have. He's actually a veteran. He's presented with some mental health issues. They believe it's PTSD. And so when you look at individuals like this, and he did have an active warrant out for his arrest for robbery on local charges, as was mentioned. So a lot of times when we're seeing a prolific rise, 40% rise, according to the U.S. Secret Service, on threats made against the president. The vast majority, and I know this too from my experience, tend to come from people with mental health issues. It's been the predominant factor. What's aggravating a lot of these, according to the National Threat Assessment Association, which gives a lot of the data, is they think it's social media, because when you hear conspiracy theories and people are watching these things and they absorb them, compounded with economic issues. I also, from what I know, from what was shared with me with the U.S. Secret Service, has been out of work for a number of years. So all these things compound your life circumstances combined with seeing things online, thinking that you have a moral duty to do something. All these things combined kind of create this kind of volcanic situation that we're seeing happening here.
Should they be tightening up security? I mean, are you surprised he got into the premises and was walking around with an earpiece? I mean, should they, because of the threats against the president, shouldn't it be more tighter? Tight.
So I know what you're referring to. So you're saying, shouldn't they lock it down?
Right.
Typically, you lock down like right before an event's going to happen. So this is during the advance, a couple of days before. One of the issues you would have, look, I would like nothing better, and I know the U.S. Secret Service will like nothing better than to lock things down. Nobody goes in, nobody goes out. But it's a place of business. And what you try to do is allow the place of business to function until you actually have to lock it down. So, no, it's not surprising, unless you say nobody's coming in. At that point, it's kind of like, what do you do? At what point do you say nobody can come in? At what point do you put up magnetometers? At what point do you actually start to lock it down? If you are looking at locking things down a day, 2 days, 3 days before, just the amount of resources and money, we're looking at taxpayer money. That's where all this stuff comes from. So, and that's where you make that decision. Typically, it's usually several hours, maybe even 12 hours, depending on how big an event is. You lock it down, you sweep it. That's when you check for explosives, and then you hold it and keep it secure.
Evie Pamporas, thank you so much. Great analysis. Thanks. All right, in Washington state, fire officials say crews are making progress in the battle against 3 major wildfires. So far, more than 8,000 acres have burned. Entire neighborhoods wiped out, hundreds of homes now gone, along with everything inside.
My father, as soon as he got all the Amber Alerts, had about 15 minutes to evacuate. He took a shower, instantly raced out of the house. All he brought was a duffel bag and 2 pairs of shoes. Unfortunately, I was at work already, so everything I owned is lost.
We're also learning more this morning about the suspect accused of starting one of those fires. Aaron Farnacci made his first appearance in court yesterday. Joining us now, NBC News national correspondent Morgan Chesky. Morgan, what more have we learned about the suspected arsonist, and have authorities revealed motive yet?
Yeah, Christine, he's being held on a $1 million bond. Motive still unclear. We may learn more through documents when they're released, when he's set to be arraigned tomorrow. But some interesting notes about Farnaci's history is the fact that back in 2010, he pleaded guilty to manslaughter in Arizona for killing his own father. He did serve prison time for that and was released about 6 years ago. Also notable is the fact that authorities had encountered him for fires on more than one occasion. However, they never resulted in any arrest or any arson charges, and we're trying to dig into what those encounters actually entailed. But they are giving a lot of credit, Christine, to these witnesses who saw him acting suspiciously in a wooded area multiple times and were able to share that description to investigators, who then tracked him down shortly after the Old Trails fire took off. And those individuals said that he was essentially standing at its point of origin. And that, combined with additional evidence that investigators were able to find, is what led to them bringing him under arrest and facing him with that charge of first-degree arson.
Hey, Morgan, for so many days it had been 0% contained. Are they getting a better handle on the fire right now?
You know, they had a cooler day yesterday than days prior, and the winds were somewhat calmer. However, the official tally is still 0% containment. And that certainly adds to a lot of the uneasiness throughout this entire area. This complex is 3 separate fires. The Old Trails is the most destructive because it has the most property damage. However, there's a larger fire that's nearby that's also continuing to burn in steep wooded areas that are hard to reach for a lot of these crews. We know, according to the governor of Washington, about 1,100 firefighters are on the ground here trying to cut line and slow the spread of some of these fires as they move back into less inhabited areas. But just a brutal firefight on multiple fronts here. And with this heat wave arriving today, pushing temperatures past 90 through at least the weekend, it's not going to get any easier, Christine.
What are people telling you? That must be so frustrating. It cools down a little bit, but they know that that's just temporary.
Right, and you have tens of thousands of people that are following these mandatory evacuation orders, and they understand the importance of that. Some have lost their homes, others, their homes still stand, but they can't get back there. And for many, the power is still out in some cases as a precaution as well to prevent the electrical wires from starting another blaze. So there are multiple factors here kind of playing out in real time that is certainly only adding to the frustration. And I should add, anger, Christine, with the fact that many people realize that this may not have been a natural disaster, but the act of an arsonist.
All right, Morgan Chesky, great work out there. Thank you so much, Morgan. All right, stock markets opened higher this morning. The Dow Jones Industrial Average at a record high, currently up more than 600 points 1 hour into today's trading. Joining me now is NBC News business and economy reporter Ali Canal. And Ali, companies are reporting how much money they're making. That's in Wall Street lingo, that's earnings season. Main Street doesn't know what that means, but what it means is how much money they're making. And companies are making a lot of money. At the same time, oil prices coming down. That's good for the inflation story. That was kind of the kindling for yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah, totally. There were 2 different camps. One were the more positive headlines over in the Middle East. President Trump hinting that the Strait of Hormuz could reopen today, possibly tomorrow. We'll be watching that very closely. But like you said, corporate earnings, a really big story. We're in the thick of earnings season right now. Caterpillar, that's the machine giant, reported very solid results due to the AI build out, actually. So we're starting to see the ripple effect of AI boosting demand for some of that equipment. Caterpillar is a Dow component, so that helped push the Dow to back-to-back record closes. And then you had a company like Palantir, defense contractor, also very heavily steeped in AI. That helped lift chip stocks. And then you have the S&P 500 at a record high. So historically, earnings usually do power stock market gains, and we're seeing that story play out.
Did Disney just report its financial report card, and what did we learn? Yeah,
well, we learned that guests are spending more money at Disney. Attendance at the theme parks up 3% at its U.S. theme parks. And earlier this year, there were actually some concerns that there would be some softness on the part of the U.S. consumer. That doesn't seem to be the case right now. We've heard differently from other theme parks, including our parent company, NBC Universal. We'll see how this continues to play out. But this goes to show that you might be pricing out some lower income consumers because if people are still spending at these higher higher levels, prices aren't probably going to come down anytime soon. So it's, again, that Main Street debate out there.
Yeah, and that's what I think is so interesting. Wall Street doesn't always reflect how people are feeling on Main Street, and affordability, inflation, those are still very, very top of mind for so many people.
Yeah, I'm always so fascinated when the stock market is at record highs, but you talk to everyday Americans and they're not feeling that. You talk about inflation. Mortgage rates are near its highest level in nearly a year, hovering at 6.8%. Oil prices, even though they've come down, gas is still well above $4 a gallon, around $4.08 is the national average. Pre-war, we were at $2.98. So Americans are still feeling it at the pump. We still have inflation at around 3.5%. The Fed's target is 2%. There's still a lot more work that needs to be done, and investors are expecting a rate hike at some point this year. So there will likely be more pain to come when we talk about consumers and their wallets.
All right, Allie Cannell, thank you so much. Watching the markets for us today. Thanks, Allie. Up next, the pressure on Republican Congressman Max Miller to resign after allegations of abuse. The deadline he faces today. Plus, we're tracking the latest food illness outbreak, salmonella linked to peppers served at Chipotle, what the company is doing to curb the spread. And later, you may have fallen asleep on the job, but you probably haven't taken a snooze on live television. We'll get you current after the break. This morning, Congressman Max Miller is denying serious allegations of domestic abuse by his ex-wife and resisting calls to step aside. He's just hours away from a deadline to drop his re-election bid. The Ohio Republican has until 4 o'clock today to decide whether he'll stay on the November ballot. Among the Republicans pressuring him to withdraw, his ex-wife's father, Ohio Senator Bernie Moreno. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell has the latest.
Good morning. The Ohio congressman says he will not go quietly. He denies allegations of domestic abuse, and he is resisting calls to exit his race for a third term in the House. The controversy around Max Miller has exposed a deep rift in a prominent political family, where the congressman and his former father-in-law, a U.S. senator, are at odds. Ohio Republican Max Miller says he is staying in his race and fighting back.
I will never, ever, ever let my baby girl see her dad walk away as a quitter.
While Senator Bernie Moreno, whose daughter Emily is divorced from Miller and claims Miller has abused her, allegations the congressman denies.
This is truly the seventh level of hell. This has been a horrific experience for my entire family.
Moreno says Miller is unfit for public office. He described a custody swap Sunday, claiming Miller would not hand over his granddaughter's favorite toy.
She has a little blue bunny that she sleeps with, literally held it hostage for 48 hours.
The House Ethics Committee opened a probe that Miller requested that will focus on whether he may have engaged in domestic violence and abuse or illegal drug use. In an interview Tuesday, Miller acknowledged past drug use.
The last time I had illegal drugs would have been, I don't know, several years ago.
He is refuting allegations Emily Moreno made in police reports that Miller pointed a gun at her and scalded her with hot water.
Miss Moreno filed the police report. The prosecutor looked at it. They looked at it for a very long time. There was nothing there.
Miller, a former Trump White House staffer, citing the president's past response to crisis.
In 2016, when President Donald J. Trump faced the most extreme allegations in the world that hit him day after day after day, he stayed in and he was resilient.
And described a phone call from the president about his own re-election chances.
He said, Maxie, it's going to be a tough race. And he said, I don't know if you're going to be able to, pull this one out.
The president was asked about Miller overnight.
I hope he's able to work it out. I feel badly for him.
While in another interview late last night, the congressman again vowing to stay in the race.
There's no chance that I'm removing myself from this race.
Ohio's 7th congressional district had been considered a likely Republican win in November before this controversy erupted so publicly. Today is a key deadline for the GOP to choose another candidate and replace Miller if he were to drop out. So apart from the family distress here, Republicans trying to hang on to control of the House have a new worry over this particular seat.
All right, Kelly, thank you for that reporting. Health officials are tracking 2 serious foodborne illnesses in the U.S. right now. According to the Centers for Disease Control, there are now more than 10,000 confirmed cases of cyclosporiasis across 47 states. They're looking into another 12,000 potential cases. At the same time, Minnesota is investigating a new salmonella outbreak, possibly linked to Chipotle. Joining us now, NBC News correspondent Ann Thompson and NBC News medical reporter Dr. Akshay Syal. And Ann, let me start with you. This salmonella outbreak looks like it's pretty localized. What steps is Chipotle taking to make people feel safe?
Well, let me just talk about the localization, because while Minnesota is the first state to report, and they say they have about 110 cases, we know that the FDA is looking into it as well, and it's looking at over 200 cases. Okay. So it may be bigger than Minnesota, but at least what happened in Minnesota is they had those 110 cases. They went out and interviewed people, came back, and the vast majority of people had eaten at Chipotle. The others who did not, they ate at other Mexican restaurants, which is what led them to the jalapeno peppers. Chipotle said they put out a statement, and you can see it here, that they removed all those jalapeno peppers from its restaurants. It has about 4,100 restaurants across the country. It says they found a potential common ingredient from a common lot, and they have taken it out and they've replaced it with a product from different growers. The problem, Christine, is we don't know who was the grower or who was the supplier, and to what other restaurants or retail outlets those peppers may have gone.
Okay, so that's salmonella. We're talking about that. But Dr. Syal, I want to bring you in here because we had been talking about cyclosporiasis. Now we're talking about salmonella. They're similar, but not the same.
They're similar in the sense, Christine, they can both cause, foodborne illnesses or illnesses that cause similar symptoms like diarrhea and abdominal pain. But they are inherently different organisms. So cyclospora is a parasite. It is something that can sort of invade the intestine and cause symptoms like that. And versus salmonella is a bacteria. And there's also a difference, Christine, in terms of how they present. So cyclospora, we've talked about incubation period, right, which is the sort of time you ingest something to the time you actually show symptoms. For cyclospora, that can be up to 2 weeks, which is what's made this outbreak so hard to sort of pinpoint the source. And with salmonella, those symptoms can present more rapidly, up to, as soon as 6 hours after you eat something. It can take as long as 6 days. Both of which are, can actually be treated with an antibiotic. For cyclospora, we often give something called Bactrim. It's an antibiotic commonly used for UTI. Salmonella gets a little bit more tricky. You don't always give antibiotics. People can sometimes get better on their own. But that sort of summarizes the differences between the two.
And what's the latest on the cyclospora outbreak at the moment? Because that, is 40-some states.
Right. It's 47 states. Over 500 people have been hospitalized. That's nationwide. Today, the CDC, we understand from a source familiar, is going to expand the biggest cluster. And that's the cluster that's tied to that iceberg lettuce that was supplied by Taylor Farms and sold at Taco Bell. Not there anymore. But as they do their detective work, they're finding connections, and they're adding 6 more states, including Arkansas, Iowa, Nebraska, North Carolina, and New Hampshire. And there's one other that I cannot remember at the time, but for a total of 15 states. And that's a pretty big deal. But again, that's 15 states out of 47. So how did the other people in the other states get sick? That we still don't know the answer to.
I'll be honest with you, Doc, I had a watermelon that I was scrubbing like you wouldn't believe the other day, making sure that when I cut it, whatever's on the outside didn't go on the inside. I know we need to either wash it or peel it or cook it. What is your advice to people who are watching right now and they're like, what am I supposed to do?
So, Anna, I'm curious what experts are telling you, but what I've heard so far is the U.S. still has the safest food supply system, and people don't need to stop eating fruits and vegetables. Those are, nutrient-dense foods that we should be eating and not substituting out. But cyclospora versus, salmonella versus other foodborne illnesses like E. coli, for example, just a reminder to practice those food safety measures, whether it's, like you said, cooking those greens or buying whole heads of lettuce, cutting out the outer few layers and rinsing it underwater. I'm sure all of us here have been a little bit, lax sometimes with how we handle fruits and vegetables at our house. Just a reminder of how important those can be.
I love raspberries, but I haven't had a raspberry in a couple of weeks because they're real hard to wash.
Yeah, they're really hard to clean. But I think the other thing to know is understand where your food comes from. We are blessed in this country because we have great abundance in our food supply. When I was growing up, you used to eat seasonally in this country. Now we get strawberries all year round or grapes all year round. That wasn't necessarily the case. The thing is that especially in the summer when you have such incredible fresh produce, know where your food comes from. Go to your local farmer's market. I mean, we know the iceberg lettuce in the Taylor Farms and Taco Bell situation came from Mexico. Know where it comes from. Eat locally, and then don't take any chances. Clean your produce.
All right. Really great advice. Thank you, both of you, so much. Ann Thompson, Dr. Akshay Syal, thanks. Up next, the latest on the war with Iran. President Trump saying the Strait of Hormuz could open as soon as today. We're live in the region. Plus, escalating drone warfare between Russia and Ukraine. Video showing a Russian drone chasing down a vegetable vendor. More current right after this. From a long-awaited revelation in the deadly Eaton fire investigation to a widespread flock camera theft, let's get to current on the other headlines we're following today. Fire officials have determined electrical equipment caused last year's deadly Eaton fire in Southern California. In a new report, investigators say an unused power line was briefly energized during high winds, which sent sparks into dry brush below. The resulting fire burned for nearly a month, claiming 19 lives and damaging more than 9,000 homes and buildings. Every flock camera monitored by a police department in Minnesota has gone missing. Police say 8 cameras were cut down and stolen in total, and that there had been no recent activity on the cameras the night they disappeared. The department notes the cameras cost $3,000 each to replace. Police are actively looking into the theft. Celebrity blogger Perez Hilton was hospitalized after police received reports he was hurting himself on a live stream. Police told NBC News a person was safely recovered after live streaming acts of self-harm on social media. The video streamed on TikTok appeared to show Hilton covered in blood and cuts while holding a knife. Hilton's management company says they have not been able to reach him since the incident. If you or someone you know is in crisis, call or text 98888 or go to 988lifeline.org. Right, in the war with Iran, President Trump says another agreement to reopen the Strait of Hormuz will come, quote, very soon. And if not, the president says Iran will be hit, quote, very hard. The original agreement was nullified after the U.S. renewed strikes on Iran. But complicating matters for the United States is a report from Reuters that the Army's stockpile of highly accurate long-range missiles is low after the 5-month military operation in the Middle East. Joining us now is NBC News Chief International Correspondent Keir Simmons. And Keir, the two sides are not speaking directly. So where do we stand on negotiations and reopening the strait?
Well, we're close and far, both at the same time, I think, Christine. Look, the thing is that at any moment something can derail the talks, which is really telephone diplomacy now, over trying to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. We've just got news that there are fresh strikes by Israel in Lebanon on Hezbollah after Israeli soldiers were killed by an improvised explosive device there. That's the kind of thing that can cause pause in these talks. And at the same time, of course, it's possible that the Trump administration, or indeed the Iranian regime in Tehran, cannot like something that is being discussed, that is being proposed, and shift back towards conflict. I think we probably have in the region of 36 to 48 hours, in other words, till Friday, before, and everyone watching will be familiar with this, before the potential is that we shift back to escalation, because, of course, that escalation does tend to happen at the weekend. I certainly think that the Emir of Qatar here calling President Trump, as he did do in recent days, is both updating him and a sign of progress, and also an attempt by leaders in this region to try to make sure that the U.S. leader is patient while they try and inch forward towards an agreement.
Before this conflict began, 130 tankers would go through the Strait of Hormuz in a single day. It was a real artery for energy around the world. Now I think over the weekend, it was maybe 20 each day, and a tanker was struck in the strait just recently. What happened?
Well, that's right. I mean, listen, the Iranian military, the IRGC, continues to target tankers in the Strait if it thinks that those tankers are not obeying orders, if you like. I mean, that's the crux of the disagreement, is whether Iran should have some kind of control supervision, even be able to charge for vessels passing through the Strait of Hormuz. That's what's being negotiated between Oman, you can see there on one side of the Strait of Hormuz, and Iran on the other side. The negotiations are between those two countries, with the US and many other countries here in the background taking a view. But, I will say, Christine, that I think one of the aspects to keep a close eye on, and you know this better than anyone, are of course the markets. And the reaction of the oil markets, the reaction of the stock market in recent days suggests that, that people think that if this can be solved, that they really can get a grip on oil prices and therefore the economy.
Yeah, watching that carefully because that can turn on a dime, too. Keir Simmons, thank you so much. Nice to see you there in Doha. All right, Russia unleashed a new barrage of drones and missiles on Ukraine's capital overnight, killing 7 people, injuring 44. It's one of the deadliest strikes on Kyiv this year and the third this week alone. The Ukrainian government also released this video that appears to show a vegetable vendor tracked and targeted by a suspected Russian drone that then explodes. President Zelensky comparing it to a hunter on a safari. Joining us now from our London bureau, NBC News foreign correspondent Danielle Hamamdjian. I mean, those pictures are really, really frightening. Put these strikes into perspective for us. They are seemingly becoming more frequent.
Yeah, at least 17 people killed, Christine. The Ukrainian capital has come under attack fairly regularly, every 3 to 4 days in the past several weeks. This is the latest in a series of large-scale Russian ballistic missile strikes that tragically for the people of Ukraine have become almost routine over the course of the summer. The Ukrainian Air Force said it downed nearly 90% of the 115 drones launched by Russia, but failed to intercept a single one of the 24 ballistic missiles and 4 hypersonic cruise missiles. Ukraine, as you know, has a shortage of air defense missiles for the American-designed Patriot system. This is the country's only way and the only arsenal they have capable of taking down Russian ballistic missiles, which travel at many times the speed of sound, Christine.
Zelensky said today that ballistic missile interceptors could have saved lives here. Yeah. That country's supply of those missiles running low. What else did he say, and what's been the reaction from allies?
Yeah, it prompted yet another warning from Zelensky as he urged allies to replenish the supplies of interceptors. This is part of what he said. Take a look. Ballistic missile interceptors could have saved the lives of those killed today. It is very important that our partners understand that delays in supplying them or an unwillingness to provide anti-ballistic systems lead directly to such horrific casualties and destruction. In terms of reaction, we've heard from the French leader, Emmanuel Macron, who condemned the latest Russian attacks on Kyiv and said more sanctions were likely. We also heard from the EU president, Ursula von der Leyen, who said Russia must pay for the destruction it has caused, and we are using the proceeds from the frozen Russian assets to make sure it does, announcing today that an additional $1.6 billion will be available to Ukraine.
And we see it there on the screen, Ukraine stepping up attacks on Russian Amazon warehouses. Those are the wild berries warehouses, the big retailer that is sort of seen as Russia's Amazon. What's the strategy there?
Yeah, well, first of all, according to Russian defense officials, the target that were hit in Ukraine overnight were supply centers being used for military purposes, including drone components. According to Zelensky, the main targets were infrastructure and a railway station, as well as warehouses containing construction materials. But as you say, Ukraine has carried out its own campaign against Russian retail logistics, striking multiple warehouses belonging to Wildberries. The goal here, to damage Moscow's economy and make sure the Russian people feel the cost of this conflict, which, remember, was only supposed to last several weeks, and that was more than 4 years ago when it started.
Danielle Hamamdjian, thank you so much for that. All right, we are following some breaking news right now out of central London. Police say a female suspect is now in custody after allegedly stabbing 4 men. A pair of scissors was found at the scene. This incident happened in the busy Covent Garden area during the middle of lunchtime. It's a popular spot for tourists. The 4 victims are being treated at the hospital. No deaths have been reported. Police say they believe this may have been a mental health-related incident. Still ahead, robot vacuums swept up in the new U.S. ban on Chinese-made robots, what it means for your Roomba. Plus, the big reveal, the new WNBA team coming to Cleveland when Current returns right after this. All right, we have some breaking news out of Michigan right now. Abdul El-Sayed is holding a press conference after his Senate primary victory. Let's listen.
Granted, so to have participated means so much. And to my fellow participants, I just want to say how grateful I am to you. Senator McMorrow, you ran an incredible race. You fought to end the corporate corruption in our politics. You took on the power of AIPAC. You were willing to speak truth to a level of power that sometimes is unbeatable. And I just want to say thank you and how grateful I am to have your support here today. I cannot wait to see what you do next, and I hope that for as long as I'm in this work, that we can be in this work together. Thank you. To my colleague and friend, Congresswoman Haley Stevens, we shared a great conversation this morning. And I know that it was a bitter end to this very long primary, but I also know that Haley brings the best of herself to her work. She is one of the most committed public servants that you'll ever meet. She loves democracy like I love democracy. And whatever differences that we might have had in the primary, they pale in comparison to what unifies us. A recognition that so long as we want to keep our democracy, that democracy better be working for people, and that all of us have to come together to make sure that we never let Mike Rogers see the inside of the U.S. Senate. So, Congresswoman, thank you for your race. And I have to say a few more thank yous before we talk about where we're going next. First, I got to thank my wife, Sarah. I really, when we decided to jump into this race, I knew that it was going to be tough for me, but I also knew that it was going to be particularly tough on our family. And the fact that she held it down alongside her medical practice, alongside making sure that our daughters didn't experience this without thinking life was just normal. That takes just an extraordinary amount of effort and sacrifice. So I just want to say how grateful I am to you, love, and I'm so honored and thankful that we get to continue this. 20 years on has been a hell of a ride. I owe her a 20th anniversary on our 21st anniversary because we definitely didn't get one of those this year. To my daughters, I know that they're not watching, but you know, I wish this meant I get a little bit more time with you, but give me 3 more months. To everybody who put their shoulders into the work, anybody who made a contribution, who knocked on a door, who made a phone call, who put yourself into this democracy, who gave us your stake in democracy, this movement, this moment is for you. And I just can't say how grateful I am to have earned the votes that we got. We took on a machine. You're not supposed to be able to beat $70 million of outside spending. A record amount of money spent in a campaign against a Democrat in a primary in any campaign. You're not supposed to be able to beat that. And what we showed is that the power of our many is greater than the power of their money. What we showed is that if you're willing to build a movement brick by brick, if you're willing to go and travel your state and have the conversations in rooms big and small, starting in moments when people aren't even paying attention to an election, but are paying attention to the price of gas and the price of groceries and the price of housing and the price of healthcare, that you can build a conversation that builds into a movement that defeats Goliath. This is what you all showed. And
Michigan Democratic Senate candidate El-Sayed reacting to his primary victory. More on that in a few moments. But we go from Michigan to space, where a piece of a discarded SpaceX rocket is believed to have crashed into the moon at 5,400 miles per hour today. The space junk came from a launch last year, was on course for a high-speed collision at around 2:35 a.m. Eastern this morning. Now, it's too small to see it with the naked eye. That crash, though, is expected to have caused a massive crater around 12 feet deep and 60 feet wide. NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello covers space for us and joins me now. What's the latest? What do we know?
The latest is we have nothing. Crickets. You know, there are no crickets on the moon, but crickets. We simply have no reports of a plume at all or an impact. Now, just about 10 minutes ago, a South Korean lunar orbiter flew over that part of the moon, and there it is. It did, we believe, take photographs of the region. And so now they got to go back and compare the photographs to see, is there any new crater? But it's kind of like looking at a piece of Swiss cheese and then saying, oh, are there any new holes in the Swiss cheese? I mean, the moon is covered with craters. So looking for a new crater is going to be a real challenge. NASA, meanwhile, says its orbiter will go over in 6 days' time and also do an aerial kind of a reconnaissance, if you will. And telescopes on the ground are looking for any evidence at all that this thing did, in fact, hit and that there was a big plume. But, Christine, here's a possibility. You know, we were all expecting this rocket booster from SpaceX to go into the moon like a missile. In fact, it could have belly flopped. It could have come in literally and kind of laid down or slammed in on its side. And if that had happened, then you may not have nearly the kind of impact or the crater that everybody had expected. So that's where we stand right now. There simply is no photographic or telescopic evidence yet of the impact of a new crater. We may have to wait.
All right. I know you'll be putting your rocket scientist hat on and trying to find the evidence for us. Tom Costello, thanks so much. A fixture in American homes is finding itself swept up in the new ban on foreign-made robots, smart vacuums. Now, China, the world's leading supplier of humanoid robots, is pushing back against this decision. Joining us now, NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung. Brian, is the Trump administration, how is it explaining its decision to ban some of these robots, and what does it mean at home?
Well, first off, this FCC rule will cover any robot that's over 4.5 pounds, which would be humanoid robots, but also includes potentially those smart vacuums that you would use in your home.
The U.S. now going America first on robots, from humanoids to your Roomba.
The Roomba is made for challenges like this.
As the Federal Communications Commission moved to ban new foreign-made mobile robots, citing unacceptable risks they pose to economic and national security.
This is about mitigating our dependency and vulnerabilities going forward.
The ban affects all foreign tech, but most heavily impacts China, a robotics juggernaut that's estimated to control about 85% of the global market for humanoid robots. Tom, on a recent trip to China, seeing the robots for himself.
You're going to put these faces, these heads on the robots?
Yeah, like in the future.
The ban doesn't affect existing products already sold here, but would include new mobile mechanical devices over a certain weight, meaning humanoids, dog-like robots with 4 legs, but also swept up in the ban any new version of smart vacuums, including Roombas.
They can create maps of our houses. They have cameras on them. They can be sending data back to whatever companies they're made from. So that's where the real concern, I think, can be with the robot vacuums.
NBC News chief tech analyst Joanna Stern has tested both American-made and Chinese-made vacuums and says the ban is going to cost customers.
It means that some of the most affordable robo vacuums that they could get, they might not be able to get soon.
Beijing now threatening to retaliate as the robot race hits a new stride.
China has banned American industries as a response to potential tariffs and also barriers to selling certain products in their markets. So maybe that's what they do here. But I should again reiterate, the government is not going to come for Roombas that are already in your home. This would be for new items that they would try to bring here to the United States, which require an FCC license to be sold. The FCC now saying essentially they're just not going to grant those types of permits.
Interesting. All right, Brian Chung, thank you, Brian. Up next, a news anchor asleep on the job. The video now going viral. We're going to show it to you. And coming up, next hour, the growing cyber threat facing America's water plants. The new states on alert. More current right after this. All parents can relate to this story. A morning news anchor has gone viral after she was caught dozing off while on air. The mom of 2 is making light of the situation, and viewers are coming to her defense. She joined the team on the Today Show this morning. We're going to show you that in a moment. But first, here's NBC's Laura Jarrett.
Hey there, Dominique Dillon is not only a morning news anchor in Memphis. She is a busy mom of 2, and after dozing off mid-show briefly, she's taking that viral moment in stride and enjoying a major showing of support.
As someone who delivers the news every day,
in our continuing coverage,
Dominique Dillon never expected to have her own headline-making moment. But that's just what happened when the Good Morning Memphis anchor and reporter was caught on camera dozing off during a report. Video of the moment quickly going viral.
Sleeping Beauty over here.
Her co-anchor having some fun.
Kind of makes you want to take a nap.
I wasn't napping. There was something in my eye, obviously.
People online quickly jumping to Dominique's defense, posting, "Excellence can be exhausting." A local news meteorologist adding, "I've been there and I get it." Other viewers noting Dominique is a mom of 2 young girls who only returned from maternity leave in April, writing, "She has a little one at the house, so her nights are different right now." Another commenting, "All mamas can relate." The California native got her start in news in 2017, working in Texas and Louisiana before moving to Memphis 2 years later. Now, she's taking her sleepy moment in stride, sharing this photo with her co-anchor and smiling on the anchor desk the next morning with this quote, "Every morning you have 2 choices, continue to sleep with your dreams or wake up and chase them."
Thank you for that, Laura. Dominique also spoke to the Today Show earlier this morning. Here's how she described the support she has been receiving.
And what I love so much about this situation is that it shows the good side of humanity and that people understand, like, what I'm going through as a mother. There's so many other mothers out there and parents in general, who work hard. They show up to work, they give 100%, and then they go home. And that's like a whole nother full-time job as well.
Yeah, as parents, you give 100% twice at work and at home, right? We can all relate to feeling like we've got 2 full-time jobs. Dominique, thanks for your story. There's much more news ahead. The next hour of Current starts right now. And good morning. It's 11 a.m. Eastern and 8 a.m. on the West Coast. I'm Christine Romans. Let's get you current. Presidential plot. An armed man arrested at a Trump golf course in California just a day before the president's visit. What we know about the arrest this hour. Democratic showdown. An ultra-progressive candidate projected winner of the Senate primary in Michigan. What it says about the Democratic Party's direction. Arson arrest. The new revelations today about the man authorities say sparked one of the most dangerous wildfires in Washington state history. What we're learning this morning. And food safety alert. Chipotle is removing jalapeños after hundreds were sickened by salmonella. What to know about the latest outbreak. And good to be with you this Wednesday, August 5th. We got a lot of news to get to this morning. Let's begin this hour with breaking news. The man arrested near President Trump's Los Angeles area golf club is due in court today on a felony charge. He was arrested Sunday, days before President Trump even set foot in California. The president was there yesterday for a fundraising dinner. 38-year-old Janine John-Teal is charged with possession of an unregistered firearm. If convicted, he would face a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years in federal prison. He also faces separate criminal charges at the local level. Joining us now, NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez. And Gabe, authorities still looking into the suspect's motive. What more can you tell us about his movements on Sunday?
Well, Christine, he was found by authorities at that golf course, and they say that he was looking around at the security preparations, taking photos and videos of those preparations just 2 days, really, before President Trump was set to arrive at that golf course for a fundraiser. So that certainly raised red flags for authorities. And they say that once they ran across him on Sunday, they found a 16-round magazine on his person, a loaded pistol in his car, and then they searched his home and found other items, including guns, body armor, high-capacity magazines, radio signal devices, and notebooks containing, quote, concerning statements. So again, right now investigators and Secret Service are trying to find out exactly what his motive was here. But as you mentioned, he is set to appear in court later today, Christine.
Hey, Gabe, there have been multiple security threats against the president during the campaign and since taking office. As someone who covers and travels with the president, I mean, has his security apparatus changed because of that?
So it is certainly on the mind of his Secret Service agents, and the president has been asked about this several times. He offers the same response, including in an interview last night. He mentioned that he took a little solace from this, in his words, because he views himself as a very consequential president, and that's why he believes that people could be trying to take his life. But when it comes to those security protocols, Christine, you notice in some open-air events, ever since that incident in Butler, Pennsylvania, back in 2024, before. He does appear more often behind bulletproof glass, certainly. In terms of certain events, there have been greater perimeters also that have been established, but the president and his security team very cognizant of these potential threats, and the Secret Service putting out a new statement overnight thanking its agents and other law enforcement partners for some very quick and thorough work here.
All right, Gabe Gutierrez, thanks so much for that, Gabe. Let's get to the other breaking news we're following this morning. Former public health official Abdul El-Sayed has defeated Congresswoman Haley Stevens in Michigan's Democratic Senate primary. We just heard from El-Sayed moments ago.
We took on a machine. You're not supposed to be able to beat $70 million of outside spending. A record amount of money spent in a campaign against a Democrat in a primary in any campaign. You're not supposed to be able to beat that. And what we showed is that the power of our many is greater than the power of their money.
Also in the last hour, Haley Stevens has thrown her support behind El-Sayed as he prepares to take on former Congressman Mike Rogers in November. She wrote in part, quote, "Donald Trump and Mike Rogers want us to come out of this primary tired and divided. I'm not going to let that happen." Joining us now, NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster in Michigan. What more are we hearing from El-Sayed, who's still speaking this hour?
Yeah, Christine, he's still speaking right now. You know, he actually addressed Haley Stevens directly. You mentioned in that statement that she talked about trying to unify the party. Well, you heard a similar message from him as he had this first statement after not being able to celebrate last night at his campaign event. I want you to listen to a little bit more of what he said about Haley Stevens this morning.
To my colleague and friend, Congresswoman Haley Stevens, we shared a great conversation this morning. And I know that it was a bitter end to this very long primary, but I also know that Haley brings the best of herself to her work. She is one of the most committed public servants that you'll ever meet. She loves democracy like I love democracy. And whatever differences that we might have had in the primary, they pale in comparison to what unifies us.
And you also heard him preview the fight that's ahead. This is going to be a tough fight for a battleground Senate seat. Again, it's being held by Democrats right now. It's important for Democrats to hold this seat if they want to be able to flip the Senate in November. But you hear him right now, or if they want to be able to flip the Senate in November, but you hear him right now attacking Mike Rogers, who is his opponent. Mike Rogers, will hear from him a little bit later this morning.
Yeah, what do we know about Mike Rogers right now? I mean, he has said that he, Shaq, is looking forward to opposing El-Sayed. He's the candidate he's most eager to oppose.
Yeah, if you listen to both of these candidates, it seems as if they're both excited to be going after one another. For Mike Rogers, we heard him on cable news this morning calling El-Sayed extreme, saying that he has a socialist attitude. El-Sayed says that he's not a socialist, that he's a capitalist. But I think that previews the line of argument and the attacks that we are going to hear. We heard President Trump earlier this week using that same line of attack. This will be a tough general election battle. We know that Rogers, he did not have a primary opponent. There are not those divisions that you see in the Democratic Party. He didn't have to face that bruising, divisive primary in Michigan. So he's coming into this general election kind of running right into it, able to get his message out as he has been the past couple of months as the Democratic candidates have been going after one another. We'll hear what that messaging sounds like a little bit later today, Christine.
All right, Shaquille Brewster for us there in Michigan. Thanks, Shaquille. In Washington, finally some relief for firefighters on the front lines there. Officials say crews are making progress containing 3 huge wildfires thanks to lighter winds. But the fight is far from over. Temperatures are now threatening to climb again. In the meantime, homeowners are getting their first chance to assess the damage. Thousands and thousands of people were forced to evacuate, grabbing what little they could.
I grabbed my wedding album, I grabbed the kids' baby books, I grabbed pet supplies and that evacuation thing that had the photos electronically on, memory sticks and all that stuff. Put that in the cars, and within a few minutes, the power went out, and it was go now, go now.
We're also learning more about the man accused of starting one of the 3 major fires. Aaron Farnacci made his first appearance in court yesterday. Joining us now, NBC News national correspondent Morgan Chesky. Morgan, let me start with the man authorities have accused of starting one of these fires intentionally. What more do we know about him?
Oh, well, Christine, he's accused of starting the Old Trails fire, which is the most destructive, not the biggest, but certainly the most destructive, because it's responsible for burning the hundreds of homes, the entire neighborhoods in the Spokane area, including this home behind me. Witnesses said that he was acting suspicious near a fence line in a wooded area, and that's what they told investigators, who led them to kind of tracking him down very quickly. Of course, they mentioned they found the lighter on him, the matches on him. At this point, we do not know a motive, Christine. We do know, if we look at his past, he pleaded guilty to a manslaughter charge back in 2010 for killing his own father in Arizona. He did serve prison time for that, and then he was released 6 years ago. And so all eyes are going to be inside that courtroom for his arraignment come tomorrow. But there is still, hopefully, more coming to light. But again, any clear motive it's still unclear right now.
And Morgan, crews have attributed some progress to these cooler temperatures today, but that's not expected to last.
Right. We have the heat wave setting in today, pushing the thermometer over 90 through at least the weekend, and all credit to the crews that have been working tirelessly on these multiple fires in very hard to reach areas. And yet, because of terrain, because of conditions, authorities have not elevated that containment level just yet. And so there is certainly an uneasy purgatory for a lot of people here who have evacuated, who know the danger of this fire. Even if their home is still standing, they can't go back because of the containment or lack thereof on these multiple blazes. And so you can kind of feel that heaviness throughout this entire area. Christine?
All right, Morgan Chesky, great reporting as usual. Thank you so much. All right, health officials are tracking 2 serious foodborne illnesses in the U.S. right now. Minnesota is investigating a new salmonella outbreak, possibly linked to Chipotle. More than 100 cases have been confirmed there. And according to the Centers for Disease Control, there are now more than 10,000 confirmed cases of cyclosporiasis across 47 states. They're looking into another 12,000 potential cases. Joining us now, NBC News correspondent Ann Thompson. And Ann, the salmonella outbreak seems to be just in Minnesota, but we're watching to see if it broadens out.
Right. We think the CDC is taking a look at 212 cases across the country, including, we assume, those 110 cases that Minnesota has made. The difference between the Minnesota case and the national case is this. In Minnesota, they say they've traced it back to Chipotle and jalapeno peppers. 89% of the people they interviewed in Minnesota ate at Chipotle. The rest ate at Mexican restaurants. So that's the jalapeno connection. This CDC says it's looking at multiple ingredients. It hasn't identified a single source, and it's looking across multiple states.
What is Chipotle saying?
Chipotle is saying, look, we are on board with this. We understand it, and we can put up their statement there. They removed the jalapeno peppers from their 4,100 restaurants across the country. It was in everything from guac to all kinds of salsas that they serve. They say they have replaced those peppers from a different vendor. And so the peppers that are now served in those restaurants are not the suspected peppers.
You've been talking to experts about the difference between salmonella and cyclosporiasis. They're different, but they're in the food system in much the same way and can be spread around much the same way.
The biggest difference is cyclospora is a parasite, and it takes about 2 weeks to incubate in your gut before you get sick. Salmonella is a bacteria, and you get it, and you could get sick within 6 hours of ingesting it. It's also a much faster moving illness than cyclosporiasis. You are usually over salmonella, or what we typically call food poisoning, within days. Cyclosporiasis can last weeks, even months, and salmonella is far more lethal. than cyclosporiasis.
Also, in terms of tracking, I remember what I ate yesterday. I don't remember what I ate 2 weeks ago, which is seriously, which could be part of the problem of trying to track the diseases.
It's a big part of the problem. And so they've got, the food detectives in each state and with the FDA and the CDC, they've got people going through grocery receipts. They're going through their restaurant receipts. They're trying to do anything. Luckily, we have this electronic footprint to jog people's memories. Because exactly, I mean, yesterday, heck, I can't remember what I had for breakfast, let alone 2 weeks ago. And then it's like, well, where did I eat? Did I eat at Taco Bell? Did I go somewhere else? They're trying to track all of this.
All right, Ann Thompson, thanks for your great work on this. Thank you so much. All right, the clock is ticking for Congressman Max Miller this morning. He has a 4 p.m. deadline to decide if he'll stay on the November ballot. The Ohio Republican is facing growing pressure to withdraw over domestic abuse allegations he denies, including from Ohio Senator Bernie Moreno, whose daughter accused Miller of abuse. But Miller isn't backing down, asking the House Ethics Committee to investigate him and invoking President Trump as he vows to stay in the race.
In 2016, when President Donald J. Trump faced the most extreme allegations in the world that hit him day after day after day, and people in the media, very much like yourself and others, said that he would have no shot at winning, that he should not be the president of the United States. But guess what? He stayed in and he was resilient.
NBC Chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles joins us now. Ryan, he appears to cast himself in the same mold as President Trump, arguing resilience. A lot would argue there is only one Donald Trump. There's only one President Trump here. So as a political strategy, how's that going?
I don't think it's going well, to be honest with you, Christine, but I don't think that's changing his calculation all that much. He did 2 different interviews yesterday, the CNN interview, which you played a part of. He did another interview on News Nation that was also rocky at best. It didn't really seem to kind of calm the fears of Republicans that are very worried that if he stays in this race, that he will put a seat that Republicans need to win in danger. And there's also just the accusations against him, whether or not he's fit to serve as a result of everything that he's been accused of. Certainly, there's one person who would argue that he doesn't deserve to serve, and that is his ex-father-in-law, Senator Bernie Moreno, who was very passionate about this yesterday. Listen to what he said.
This is truly the 7th level of hell. This has been a horrific experience for my entire family. If there's any minimum standard for being an elected official, as I said, he fails to meet that minimum basic standard. I don't care about the politics at all.
And then, as you point out, Christine, Max Miller put out a statement yesterday saying that he is welcoming the House Ethics Committee to look into this matter, to essentially clear his name. He put that out in a statement yesterday. I did the rounds this morning with a number of Republican sources to get a sense as to whether or not there's any chance Miller will drop out of this race before the 4 p.m. deadline. At this point, Christine, no one thinks that he's going to step aside, but things often happen fast, so we are keeping a very close eye on his status.
All right. Meanwhile, on Todd Blanche's Attorney General nomination, Ryan, Senator Susan Collins coming out as the first Republican to publicly oppose him. Is that a significant setback, even after Blanche's last-minute concessions to win over other GOP holdouts?
Any no vote is not a good sign for Todd Blanche if it comes from a Republican. But I do think we have to put Senator Collins' position in context. She is in a very difficult reelection bid in a purple state. Maine is the only Republican-held seat on the map that was won by Kamala Harris in 2024. So I do think the Republican caucus is perhaps giving her a little bit of leeway here to demonstrate a level of independence. I say that, though, with the knowledge that there are still 2 other Republican senators who have yet to declare where they sit when it comes to that vote. And it's Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, who has nothing left to lose. He lost a primary after Donald Trump picked his opponent. And Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, who has an independent streak. So while Blanche looks to be okay at this point, there is still a couple of wild cards out there that could potentially kill his nomination if things go the wrong way. Christine.
Yeah, and Ryan, while we're chatting, Senator John Thune just made a procedural move that could set up a vote for as early as for Friday. So we think that there'll be a Senate vote here pretty soon. Ryan Nobles, thank you. Coming up, we're learning about more cyber attacks on critical water infrastructure across the U.S. We'll tell you which states were targeted. Plus, one of Central America's most active volcanoes erupts, forcing hundreds to flee. Why the danger may not be over yet. And later, SpaceX beat Wall Street estimates in its first ever earnings report. What the numbers say about the company's trajectory. We'll get to current after the break. This morning, Jeanine Pirro's future as the U.S. attorney is uncertain. Sources tell NBC News she and President Trump apparently had it out in the Oval Office this week over her decision to drop criminal charges in the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool case. Pirro found the damage in the pool simply wasn't vandalism, and that directly contradicted the president. Trump says he hasn't decided whether she will keep her job.
Well, I just think she was totally wrong. They did a beautiful job. Certainly where there was vandalism, it was actually, in my opinion, it was major vandalism. And I told her I was not happy.
Is she safe? Are you going to keep her in the position?
I haven't made a determination.
NBC White House correspondent Yamiche Alcindor is at the White House. What more do we know about that Oval Office meeting, Yamiche?
Well, Christine, this was clearly a heated conversation in the Oval Office where President Trump made clear that he was not happy with the fact that this case was being dismissed. And let's also remember that this isn't the only case that was dismissed. There were a number of other cases related to people who were accused of vandalizing the reflecting pool that Jeanine Pirro is now looking to back away from. The president making clear that he wanted to see these people convicted, believed it was vandalism. That being said, we did see video of Jeanine Pirro hauling in a briefcase and boxes. Those were actually evidentiary documents that she showed the president, trying to make the case that she was not folding like an umbrella as he accused her of doing, but in fact that she was following the evidence, Christine.
Me that the president said there outside the plane that he has not made a determination yet if she's going to keep her job.
That's right, Christine. From right now, at this moment, it's not clear whether or not Jeanine Pirro will continue to be the top federal prosecutor in Washington, D.C., though she is a longtime ally of President Trump. So even though he has harsh words for her, these two go back decades. So there is some sense that there could be this sort of chemistry between them and this friendship between them that could ultimately save her job. That being said, she is facing pressure, it seems, according to our sources, to prosecute the president's perceived enemies. And there are a lot of cases in Washington, D.C. That present that opportunity. So in some cases, it might be that we'll have to see how she handles future cases, including future cases related directly to reflecting pool, because, again, that was not that Olympian, that former Olympian was not the only person accused of vandalizing the reflecting pool. So maybe if she has other cases where she convicts people, that might be able, or where she gets a conviction, that might be able to save her job as well, Christine.
All right, Yamiche Alcindor, thank you so much. The FBI and Environmental Protection Agency are issuing warnings to utility companies nationwide after hackers targeted water systems in 7 states. This attempted hack comes after Minnesota reported hackers targeted more than 30 water facilities. That attack had the hallmarks of Iranian meddling. Joining us now, NBC News national law enforcement and intelligence correspondent Tom Winter. What precautions is the FBI urging states and utilities to take, Tom?
Well, what they've been asking for is these PLCs, these programmable logic controllers, which is something most people never touch or use at all. But it's something that we all benefit from because these are the types of devices that tell a pump to turn on or turn off, a valve to open or close, and also provide that information back to the people that are running these water systems and wastewater systems that we use every single day and sometimes tend to take for granted. So the issue here is that certain types of these PLCs have a vulnerability which apparently Iran and others have sought to exploit in the past. They take control, they change the username and password, and they have that PLC not go to, say, Minneapolis, a local controller, but to somewhere obviously quite overseas.
I mean, we know state and non-state actors have tried to meddle in America's important utility infrastructure before. I mean, this is something we know is happening, but the president, in the first days of these warnings, kind of downplayed it when it was in regards to Minnesota. What is he saying exactly? I
mean, look, to your point, there are issues that go back with the Iranians for 13, 14 years to actually a dam just about 40 minutes north of us in Rye, New York. The president did initially, as this was starting to come out, and we knew of 7 states, didn't know who they were except for Minnesota, directly addressed the situation in Minnesota. We can take a listen.
I think I blame it on Minnesota because they're grossly incompetent. There was a cyber attack of 30 water plants, and I would blame it on Minnesota and the governor, the corrupt governor of Minnesota. They like to say, oh, it was Iran. Iran should be so lucky. Iran's got bigger problems than worrying about Minnesota.
So, Christine, one of the issues about that is, first off, this was a warned about potential threat back in April, and that was obviously after the U.S. had started combat operations with Iran. So it should not have been a surprise to any municipalities or water sources. But it did impact 7 other states. So it's not as if Minnesota was the only place that was hit. Law enforcement tends not to blame the victim. It's not, it's the results of a foreign actor that was involved in this, according to our reporting. So the issue here really is, what is the U.S. doing when we have these kind of older systems to make sure that they're being updated? And in some places, it's a challenge just trying to figure out what systems do we have and where and what are their vulnerabilities. These vulnerabilities come out every single day or every single week. I get emails about these types of systems where there's one little issue with it. The U.S. is great about sharing that information, but then that means that other actors are aware of the information and the known vulnerabilities. So it's just this constant whack-a-mole, which does present a challenge both from a budget standpoint and just a logistics standpoint for all these municipalities and complexes.
And just from a foreign policy and a defense policy standpoint, the president's saying that Iran has bigger problems. That what officials are concerned about is that a cornered Iran is a dangerous Iran if it can use these kinds of tactics to meddle in the United States.
This is the perfect type of thing for them to do. It's low cost. They have the know-how. They have the ability. They're on the varsity of, if you will, of teams of countries that can exploit vulnerabilities like this, along with China and Russia. Those other 2 countries, obviously, at a much greater scale.
Right.
But the thing to think about here as we move forward is, what does AI allow you to use? So now there's a lot of manual component of this. AI, you can, if you could train it correctly and send agents out correctly, you could say, find every single one of these controllers that exists on a U.S. public network, which is part of the problem here. What would be the scale and the potential problems with that?
Yeah, entertaining for a spy novel, terrifying for national security.
Exactly.
Thank you, Tom Winter. Nice to see you.
Got it.
All right, from a volcanic eruption to passport chaos, let's get you globally current on the other headlines we're following today. Stunning images from Guatemala as the Fuego volcano erupts, raining lava and blasting ash into the sky. Authorities say the eruption is currently in a critical and explosive phase. They're ordering more than 1,000 people to evacuate. The alert is expected to stay in place for a few more days. British Prime Minister Andy Burnham is considering an inquiry into convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein and his actions in Britain. The UK's victims minister told BBC News that Burnham is planning to meet the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, and a public inquiry could follow. British police are already investigating multiple allegations related to Epstein. The European Union's new passport controls are causing travel chaos for people leaving or entering the EU. Many are blaming Europe's new biometric border system that takes fingerprints and facial scans. It's causing people to wait in long lines for hours and even miss their flights. Authorities say that once the systems are fixed, the new border checkpoints will be faster than the old ones. Right after the break, the mom accused of killing her 3 kids spoke out in court for the first time. Why her testimony could change the course of this trial. Plus, a pilot makes an emergency landing right in the middle of a busy Florida highway. We have more current right after this. From an emergency landing on a busy interstate to a contentious media merger, let's get you current on the other headlines we're following today. An emergency landing out of Florida on a busy interstate. The small plane just barely managed to miss that highway sign and avoid traffic. The pilot said the aircraft's oil pressure was dropping, forcing them to the ground. Only a pilot and flight student were on board. No one in the plane or on the road, thankfully, was hurt. The FAA is investigating. A federal judge has set an official trial date for March to determine if the Paramount-Warner Brothers merger is legal. Paramount initially struck a deal to acquire Warner Brothers for over $100 billion back in February, but the deal was quickly delayed by lawsuits alleging the merger breaks antitrust laws. The delay could cost Paramount big after it agreed to pay Warner Brothers shareholders millions while the deal stalls. The FAA is investigating a safety incident involving a military helicopter that was carrying President Trump. Trump's Marine One helicopter left yesterday from the White House as flights departed from nearby Reagan Airport. Policy states flights must pause while Trump takes off. Marine One and a commercial jet then got too close to each other. However, both landed safely, and the FAA said in a statement that it didn't appear to be a dangerous close call. Now, we are hearing from Lindsay Clancy for the first time since her murder trial kicked off over a week ago. In court yesterday, she told the judge she agreed to certain facts in the case against her.
Do you understand, by signing or going along with that stipulation, you are basically relieving the Commonwealth of its burden to prove those certain facts? Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that what you want to do at this point?
Yes.
We also heard brief entries from Lindsay's diary chronicling her emotional state in the months leading up to the killings. She says the act was driven by postpartum psychosis. If convicted, Clancy faces life in prison without the possibility of parole. Joining us now on set, NBC News legal analyst Misty Maris. And Misty, we just heard Lindsay speak on the record for the first time. How does this admission help move this trial along?
So these were certain factual stipulations, and actually some of them were read into the record in court today. So basically, this is when the prosecutors and defense agree on certain facts. Prosecutors would have to bring in dozens of witnesses to show chain of evidence, things related to DNA testing and samples. And some of what we heard that was in these factual stipulations was the bands that were used to kill the 3 children, DNA conclusions that were made in those reports. That is being agreed upon and read into the record. Of course, Lindsay Clancy had to tell the judge she's doing this knowingly and voluntarily.
We heard several medical witnesses testify about her physical and emotional state before and after the killings. And we also heard entries from her personal journal, her own words. What picture does that paint?
Yeah, so we have the medical testimony, and some of that this week was from those who treated her in the hospital, and that was really significant. They were talking about what her state of mind was in the after. But these journal entries chronicle what she was thinking at the time. One of these, submitted by the prosecution: I'm so desperate to get a break from taking care of everyone. My mind is trying to find something physically wrong with me. This is from November 2022. Then from the defense, I want help. I want to be well. So, Christine, this is interesting. You're seeing these read to the jury, these journal entries by both sides, using them to paint the picture. Prosecution, somebody who's acting intentionally, knows what they're doing. From the defense, somebody whose mental health is in a significant decline in those months leading up to the killings.
There are a lot of people on the witness list. Who else are we expecting to hear from today?
So now the tables have turned here a little bit. We're now hearing from experts. Right now, we've got a forensic toxicologist who had testified this morning, forensic scientists currently on the stand. And these experts are testifying about the types of things that was found in Lindsay Clancy's blood when she went to the emergency room. That's significant. We know that part of the defense argument is that she was over-medicated. She was prescribed all these different medications. Forensic scientists talking about DNA evidence, how that all fits together. And then we expect in the near future for the prosecution's case to hear from psychiatric witnesses who are going to be talking about state of mind. What does somebody look like when they're in a state of psychosis? And does Lindsay Clancy fit the bill?
All right. Misty Maris, thank you so much. All right, now to the death of a father at a New Jersey ICE detention center. 41-year-old Edwin Lopez Cornejo's grieving family. They want answers about his death. The cause is still under investigation. Cornejo, originally from El Salvador, had been in the United States for 20 years and in ICE's Delaney Hall since June. NBC New York's Jen Maxfield has the latest.
And I'm going to grow up without a father. And they didn't even let him see me one last time before he died.
12-year-old Ashley surrounded by family members, wiping away tears as she mourns her father, Edwin Giovanni Lopez Cornejo, who died after 6 weeks in ICE custody at Delaney Hall in Newark.
He had high blood pressure and diabetes, and they refused to give him his medication, and they brushed off his complaining.
The family is calling for an independent investigation into the 39-year-old's death. His mother says he called her Friday and said part of his face and right arm were numb. The next call she got was from University Hospital in Newark, saying he had died. She told her story through a translator.
It's not fair that he had to die because of medical negligence.
At a news conference and support rally at the Reformed Church in Highland Park, immigration advocates vowed to help the family push for an independent investigation by the Attorney General's office and a release of all of Lopez Cornejo's medical records from ICE.
We need to act now. We cannot wait for another death.
The Lopez Cornejo family says Edwin Giovanni was picked up by ICE agents in Plainfield on June 18th as he was headed home from the grocery store. They say he had no criminal record and had been working in construction for more than 20 years.
There's nothing that we can do to bring back my brother, but I want this not to stay with impunity. I want this to perhaps help avoid all the deaths.
The Department of Homeland Security released a statement over the weekend noting that Lopez Cornejo had entered the U.S. without documentation in 2006 and had been ordered back to El Salvador. The DHS statement adds, while in custody, Lopez Cornejo received proper medical care and was seen by medical professionals.
All right, thanks to NBC New York's Jen Maxfield for that report. Coming up, Moderna is hoping its new flu shot could soon be greenlit. How it's different from what's already out there. Plus, the big reveal, the new WNBA team coming to Cleveland when Current returns right after this. All right, this flu season, you or your loved ones might be getting a new kind of flu shot. The Food and Drug Administration will soon decide whether to approve a new shot by Moderna using mRNA technology. The FDA initially said it would not review Moderna's application, sending shockwaves through the pharmaceutical industry. Moderna is asking for the vaccine's approval for 50 to 64-year-olds and accelerated approval for people 65 and older. Joining us now, NBC News health and medical reporter Berkeley Lovelace. And Berkeley, we're supposed to get an update on the FDA's decision today. If the FDA decides to move forward here, then what comes next?
Yeah, so if this gets approved, this would be the first ever mRNA vaccine for flu to reach the market. And so after that approval, the CDC would still need to sign off on the distribution of the shots. And so in a late stage clinical trial, the vaccine, which the company is calling Influsiva, was found to be about 27% more effective than the standard flu shot. And that is a big difference. As you know, our flu shots currently are not very good. And we have hundreds of thousands of hospitalizations every year due to seasonal flu. This vaccine, which, as you noted, is going to be for older adults, will be very important and key for them.
Explain to our viewers how this vaccine is different from the standard flu vaccine that we're used to every season.
Yeah, so the main difference here is speed. So currently it takes about 6 months for us to create a standard flu shot. And that's a problem because by the time we make those vaccines, the virus has often already mutated. So Moderna says this vaccine can be made in 2 to 3 months. And so that means scientists can wait just a little bit longer to make that vaccine and perhaps have a better match to that strain circulating. Otherwise, the vaccine will be just about the same as you get for a standard flu shot. Side effects such as headache and fatigue were more common with this vaccine, but they were still mild in the trial.
Hey, Berkeley, would this shot be covered by insurance?
That's a great question, and right now that is really unclear. So the CDC's Vaccine Advisory Committee, known as ACIP, has been blocked by a federal judge from convening, and so that happened after the judge ruled that Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. unlawfully appointed new members to the panel. So health insurers base their recommendations on whether to cover these vaccines based off ACIP, and so right now people could have to pay out of pocket for the vaccine without ACIP's recommendation.
What could it mean for the future of Moderna and the mRNA technology?
I mean, it could be a big deal for Moderna, and it could be a big deal for the broader industry as a whole. And so, as you know, there has been concern about whether or not this vaccine would get approved because of Health Secretary Kennedy's past criticisms of mRNA technology and vaccines generally. In fact, as you noted, the FDA initially rejected this vaccine. So this would be a ray of hope for the industry as well.
All right, Berkeley Lovelace, thank you so much for that. All right, to the stock market this morning. SpaceX shares falling back to earth. A surge in AI spending appears to be shaking up investors. The company's stock tumbling about 9%. Look at that chart there. The stock is trading around $112 a share right now. Look at that. It's about half of its post-IPO peak. IPO, of course, is the initial public offering when the company came to the public markets. And because it's now public, it had to release its first ever public earnings report. That came yesterday. Since going public back in June, share prices have fallen, now well below that initial $135 IPO price. Joining me now, NBC News senior financial investigative reporter Gretchen Morgensen. Gretchen, so nice to see you. We always say IPOs are very highly speculative. They have no track record. So we're kind of watching what's happening with this company. What is this earnings report telling you about what's happening at SpaceX?
You're right about this. This was a mania stock when it came public, right? So, yeah, this is the first real report where investors can dig in and see what the company's prospects are and how it might, perform going forward. And they liked a little bit of what they saw, but there was something in there that they didn't like, which is the big AI build-out. And so that's concerning.
Why do they not like that big? Because it's expensive?
It's expensive, and they just want to make sure it's going to really result in earnings. Now, the company does not make money, and so that's really the concern.
It's been several weeks since SpaceX went public. And remember, these are always highly speculative. But, if you bought the IPO at $135, you are losing money. Taking into account yesterday's earnings report, how is the company, I guess, positioned for the future here?
Well, there are two really big events happening this week. One, of course, the earnings. Two is tomorrow there is a big slug of SpaceX stock that is going to hit the market. That's because after an initial public offering, you generally have a lockup period where insiders, that's the company people who have shares that they got at very cheap prices, cannot sell them. Now that lockup is ending for more than $100 billion worth of stock tomorrow. That is going to have real selling pressure on a company stock that's already undergone a lot of decline.
Let's be honest, a lot of people became billionaires because they were early investors in SpaceX, and they might want to sell some of those shares to get their money out of the company.
They might want to buy that house they've been looking at.
Or the jet, or 5 jets, or 10 jets.
Right.
Now, people might be watching us, Gretchen, and they'll go, I didn't buy SpaceX. This doesn't matter to me. But guess what? For a lot of investors, you might own a piece of the company because it is in the NASDAQ 100. And if you have investments that mirror the NASDAQ 100, then you own a piece of SpaceX.
That's right. And this was a really interesting moment in the IPO, Christine, because NASDAQ made a kind of a new rule about letting new companies, unseasoned companies that were not trading, for a long period of time into the index. And when they did that, that exposed a lot of investors to huge volatility. We've seen this in the SpaceX stock. It went to $225, and now it's $112, $113. So this is volatile. This is a company stock that is really, really moving a lot, and you are really absorbing that if you're an investor in the NASDAQ.
So you could have a situation where the new billionaires are selling their stock while mom and pop on Wall Street don't even know that they're buying the stock because it's in their indexes. Quickly walk us through the influx of insider selling within SpaceX, and then how that aligns with insider sales that you're seeing overall.
Right. So generally speaking, for the first 6 months of this year, insiders have been big sellers of stocks across corporate America. We've seen 11 times the sellers to the buyers. So this is a near historic high, and so people are concerned with what that means because these people know what's going on inside their companies, and if they were positive about it, they might not be selling.
So maybe they either made so much money because the stocks are up so much that they want a little off the table, or they're concerned about what's coming ahead, and we just don't know.
We don't know.
Gretchen Morgensen, so nice to see you. Thank you so much.
Christine.
All right, from Polymarket's move to live sports to a new lawsuit against Amazon, let's get you financially current this morning. New Jersey is suing Amazon over its treatment of delivery drivers. The suit claims Amazon used its market power to force low pay and poor conditions on thousands of independent delivery drivers. Amazon relies on a vast network of small delivery contractors nationwide to handle last-minute shipments. The company responded, calling the claims just wrong. Prediction platform Polymarket is making a bigger move into sports. It's teaming up with the ATP Tour, the world's governing body of men's professional tennis, to pair match streams with real-time prediction market data. This is one of Polymarket's first partnerships with a global sports tour. The financial terms of that deal were not disclosed. The WNBA's new expansion team in Cleveland officially unveils its name and logo. The new franchise, the Cleveland Sirens. The name reflects the city's proximity to Lake Erie. The Cleveland Sirens will officially take to the court in 2028. All right, after the break, neighbors in a small Alabama community come together with a purpose. How they built the first paved road the county had seen in over a decade. It's part of our series, 50 States in 50 Days. Plus, on the bright side, we'll take you to a rooftop garden here in the Bronx where fresh food is fostering human connection. We have more current right after this. When you feel overwhelmed by the problems facing the nation, sometimes you just need to turn to your neighbors to find solutions. In our series, 50 States in 50 Days, we are introducing you to people making a difference in their communities. And today we're making a stop in Alabama, where neighbors came together to pave the way for a new road in their county. Brittany Decker from our affiliate WVTM in Birmingham takes us along for the ride.
Once it fought back. It was very bumpy. Dust hanging in the air. Your car would squeak. You got flat tires. Slow and stubborn. But now it's paved. Quiet, smooth. I'm smiling because I know that my truck's not getting beat up. Almost out of place. And I don't have to wash it again when I get home. In Randolph County, roads don't just take you places. They give people something to talk about. You see here, this is how most things begin. Small town talk.
You line dancing this morning?
But big.
Here's Mr. Mayor.
Motion.
What law they break? It'd still be a dirt road if it was left up to me. Y'all did great work trying to get everything together.
Pat High.
Otherwise known as Wild Woman. That's my lake name.
Perfect. Has lived on County Road 256 long enough to know its moods. Dry means dust. Rain means trouble.
We would need four-wheel drive to come down the road. Meet them after work and say, I'll be there at 3:30. Will you drive me home? We all complained about the road for years.
The road made life harder than it needed to be.
I got tired of it one day and put some signs in the road that said, fix our road, bring your checkbook, we're ready.
Well, that sign led to a driveway meeting.
Well, 60 people showed up.
Neighbors and county leaders.
And we all moaned about our road, and they said, well, we don't have money to fix your road. And we said, well, could we help? And they said yes.
And before long, they became a team.
So I asked, who wants to be on the committee to do this? Everybody stood with their hands behind their back. So I just started picking people that I knew their names. Josh, Steve, hey, Jim, you over there.
How did you even learn all of this?
On the road. Then we told them we knew what we were doing because we had professionals working for us.
That committee led to something Randolph County hasn't seen in a very long time.
This is the first new paved road in Randolph County in 14 years.
Did it seem initially like the impossible mission?
Every burp we hit in the road increased the price, where we wondered if we could make it. In the end, 100 houses, and we were able to get about 60 of them to contribute.
Road heroes recognized, names posted for all to see. A road built by people who live on it.
This is really old.
So 3 years after that first sign, over $400,000 raised.
Notice all that money laying on the ground here?
Miles of red tape.
The pride that has come along with the road, people are exclaiming to their neighbors how happy they are.
County Road 256 is smoother and quieter, but more than that, it's proof.
We got it done.
In a county with a near 1,000 miles of dirt roads, this one didn't wait its turn. It found its people, and they paved the way. I'm Brittany Decker for NBC News Now.
What a great story. Brittany Decker from our affiliate in Birmingham, thank you so much. And on the bright side, sometimes it takes access to a new space like a garden for a fresh passion to bloom. Throw in healthy food and good chit-chat, and strangers quickly become friends. That's certainly the case for one man and his neighbors in New York City who made use of their building's rooftop to grow a garden and to grow their community. Here is NBC's Marquise Francis.
In the city known as the concrete jungle, you'll find a lush garden in the clouds, literally bearing fruit and veggies.
I have plum tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, green tomatoes, and heirloom tomatoes in this bed.
That's 67-year-old Darielle Dashiell.
This is my garden, my happy place.
A New York City native, green thumb enthusiast, and self-appointed manager of a community garden that sits atop his 10-story South Bronx apartment building. That's where you'll find more than a dozen metal planters filled with herbs like basil and rosemary, cabbage, and various flowers, all maintained by Dashiell and a few other neighbors in the building that started off as strangers.
As the garden grew, more people realized it was there. I got them into it, and then they started planting, and now there's a whole sort of fight over the garden every year.
For Dashiell, what began as a curiosity for planting and harvesting his own food on his grandfather's farm in Long Island has evolved into a full-blown passion.
I love watching the plants grow.
Upwards of 30 hours a week, you can find the retiree up on this rooftop sharing his knowledge with neighbors, like how to care for plants and use gardening as a tool for wellness and connection. It's something he says that's needed in the borough. City data shows that though access to safe and nutritious food is an issue throughout all of NYC, in the Bronx, nearly 1 in 4 residents suffer from food insecurity. Nationally, about 14% of all U.S. households struggle to get food because of lack of money or resources.
That's really what got me hyper interested in fresh food, gardening, those kind of activities.
Some people on this rooftop don't even speak the same language, but that doesn't stop them from gardening together.
Now I have the Google Translate app, so this one.
Community at this garden serves as the shared language.
All of these plots belong to different people, and they find themselves collaborating and sharing interests, and they've never met each other before, but yet this is something they could all share together.
This is my lemon tree, which I love so much.
Wow. After a long day of harvesting and talking about food, there was only one thing left to do.
Cheers, my friend.
Yes.
Eat.
Beautiful. I'm amazed. What kind of effect on you personally has gardening had? And what effect has it had on the community as a whole?
You can see the joy in their face when they're out there, when people recognize it, the effort that you put in, and they find beauty in it, or they find comfort in it, or they like it. That makes me feel good, you know? So that's, besides getting good fresh food to eat, I also like that part of it.
Marquise Francis, NBC News.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.